Awesome. So, I did that interview with Eric Worre, and I talked about exactly how my network marketing career had gone, and that I had failed in, I honestly, I've lost track. My guess is around 11 or 12 different network marketing companies, and I was at a pretty low point in my life. I'd lost everything in real estate, and times were just lean, very, very lean, and I wasn't in the right mindset. And I read that book, Go for No, and I basically said, to hell with it. I'm going to freaking go for no. And that's what I did. I set a goal of 20 no's a day, and that's what I did for 6 months. I honestly don't think that I missed a day. And guys, there were weeks, and these are the things that you may not hear from certain trainers and leaders and things, and maybe it's just the lifestyle whole painting the vision, dreaming, whatever. But I'll tell you, I mean, there were weeks where I got 20 no's a day, no yeses. And then there were days that, and I specifically remember there was a Friday where I got a yes, and then I got another yes. I'm like, man, this is awesome. But I stuck to my guns and went for the 20 no's and got 5 signups that day. Now, keep in mind that was in a time where Ray really needed signups very badly, and times were still lean back then. And I truly, because think about it like this. Let's deconstruct it a little bit, and then I'll bring out your trainers for tonight. Let's deconstruct it a little bit. Had I never achieved success in a network marketing company, I never, ever would have been asked to speak on the different stages that I've spoken on. I never would have been on Eric Worre's stage. I never would have been a speaker at Live the Dream. Never would have been a speaker at No Excuses. Never would have done webinars with Networking Times. None of that ever would have happened. And so you start to think back to your career, and you wonder, what if I didn't read that book? You know what I mean? Maybe I would have tried to have a go at it back in real estate or something like that. I don't know. So it's amazing. Two things. Number one, how grateful I am for the trainers that you have here tonight. And I am honored, so honored and grateful that they took time with their busy schedule, especially on a Sunday night, to spend some time with you. And, please show them your gratitude as well and your full attention. And, turn off Dances with the Stars and Skype and all these other distractions and Flappy Birds, or I guess that's already gone, or whatever. And pay close attention to these guys, because what I want for you is I want you to get the same benefit that I got out of their training, and that is life-changing. This is not a light, let's all feel good kind of thing. This literally can change your life if you allow it, if you pay attention, if you really apply it in your life. And this doesn't matter. I know most of you are in network marketing. I know some of you, I think I have some of my insurance group on here. We have real estate people probably sneak on these every once in a while. And, wherever you're at, it does come down to a numbers game, and it does come down to the mindset to apply to get that numbers game, and you're going to hear the best of the best tonight. And so I'm excited. I'm going to pass over. Let's do one more. Before I pass it over, let's just check it out. Let's see how many people are playing along here on Facebook. All right, so 147 comments. That's pretty cool. Woot. Let's get the party started. So I'm going to bring out my friends, and just, the second thing, I was about to go into number two. Number two, I still can't believe I haven't done a webinar with these guys before, so I'm going to beg them for forgiveness. I'm going to beg them to pretty please with cherries on top, perhaps possibly do another webinar with me in the future as well, because their information is pure gold. My friends, Richard Fenton, Andrea Waltz. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Hey, Ray, can you hear us okay?
Yes. Probably the oddest introduction you've ever had, right?
I love it. That was awesome.
That was terrific.
Awesome. Well, let me pass you guys. I assume you have some kind of fancy show for us, so let me pass you over. I'll try and figure out technology here. Sometimes this, hopefully that'll work. I think I just made you presenter. Is that correct? Uh-oh. No? Let's try again. No go, huh? Oh, here we go. All right. You should see something now, right?
Yes. Okay, here we go. All right, let's see.
So we got over 700 people excited to hear you guys and rock this thing out, and I'm excited. I'm gonna retake notes on your training, and I'm excited to have you guys on here.
All right, awesome. Well, let's get to it then. We are super thrilled to be with you and everybody tonight. I'm so grateful and honored that so many people have joined us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to tell you, Andrea and I always joke that when we get on these calls, how happy we are to talk to everybody about our favorite word in the whole world, the word no.
Right. Now, we do love the word no, but that's because we've spent many years reprogramming the way we think about it. And most everyone obviously loves yes, and they hate no, or at best, they're neutral about it. And the way of thinking that we want to share with you tonight is designed to get you some really amazing things. And I love Ray's testimonial. Some of those things are great financial results for sure, and some of those things, in my opinion, some really attractive things for me at least, have to do with less stress, more fun, which you can see just hearing Ray talk about it, and a greater peace in your business. Whatever the thing is for you, though, whether it's financial results, whether it's better emotions in your business, I think you're going to find it in what we are going to teach tonight.
Yeah, the funny thing is, as kids, we weren't fazed at all when we heard the word no. I mean, we shrugged it off, we laughed at it. I mean, we simply ignored it. In fact, we kind of accepted rejection as a part of the process. I mean, we did it automatically. We didn't even have to think about it. But somewhere along the line, this natural sense of tenacity that we're born with seems to get lost. It gets drummed out of us along the way as we're growing up. And the fact is, it gets drummed out of us by well-meaning people in our lives, our teachers and our parents and people from the church and people who mean the best for us, but they're constantly telling us, that play it safe and look both ways and be seen and not heard and all of these things which kind of shrink our comfort zone around us. Now, in case you just happen to think that this simply sounds like we're going to do a bunch of rah-rah motivational stuff, let us assure you, we aren't. We hope you're motivated, but really with the time that we have with you this evening, we want to share with you what we call our core go for no concepts, at least as many as we can get in the time we have, things that will start impacting your results immediately. And when we say immediately, we don't mean next week, next month, or next year. We are talking literally like tomorrow morning.
Exactly. So here's the first question that we want you to ask yourself, and that is, when you hear the word no, what does that no mean to you? How do you respond to that internally in your mind? What do you say to yourself? A lot of people, when they hear no, they interpret it really negatively. They figure that this means never. They think they're not going to get anywhere today. I don't have what it takes, right? They have all these negative messages. I'm not going to be successful in this business. Or do you respond positively? Are you able to avoid all of that negative thinking? And then how do you respond externally? What do you do with your activity? What do you do with your actions? What do you do when you get that no or that series of no's? Do you stop for the day? Do you move on to other tasks? Do you let the entire day go without making another call or another contact? Worse, right? Do you go a week or a month? Do you avoid networking situations and asking for referrals? All because you hate putting yourself in the position of potentially hearing a no. Now, we always ask this question at the beginning because it's really telling, and it's critically important because your response to rejection, in this case hearing no, is the thing that ultimately spells the difference, in our opinion, between long-term success and failure for millions of people all over the planet. And you guys, it's not age or gender or training or all of the skills. It's not the product or service being offered.
Right, and it's not the economy,
right.
Everybody.
Exactly, not the economy. Nothing else but this. The relationship you have with the word no, and I'm sure you didn't think you had a relationship with no, but you do. What you think and feel when you hear it, how you internalize it, how you respond to it, and then what you do afterward as a result, whether you seek opportunities to hear more no's or whether you basically take off and run from them, is one of the single most important factors in determining the level of success you will achieve. Ray is like our icon. He's the perfect example of this. In fact, Rich and I are willing to go out on a ledge and say that if you are not currently achieving the level of success you want in your life, you are probably not failing. That is hearing no often enough. Now, what we want to do is so Richard and I are known as the go for no people. Everybody assumes that we must be fearless because we wrote this book on getting more no's, right? No, they must be so great at this. That is so not true. So what we want to do before we get into some of these core concepts is we want to lay a little foundation. We want to tell you a couple stories. Rich is going to start with telling you guys about his rough start in sales, so you kind of see where we're coming from with this so that we can then, again, share these core concepts, which is going to do exactly what we're talking about here. We're going to change how you think and feel about the word no, and then how you respond to it, which can change everything. So, Richard, with that, go ahead.
Absolutely. Well, my early years in business, I was working for my father in the automotive fleet business. Rent-a-cars, leasing companies, that kind of thing. I was a few weeks into a brand new sales position working for my dad, and I was failing miserably. I knew I had to do something, and you have to imagine how difficult, this was. Here I am, a 20-year-old kid going back to his sales legend father and having to utter the most difficult 3 words probably on the planet in that situation. I can't sell. Interestingly, my father took it pretty well. He said, Rich, he goes, you know what? He says, you're right. He said, I really haven't given you any sales training, have I? He says, come on in here. Let's make some calls together. Well, let's make some calls together really meant that he was going to make some calls. And because this was in a pre-speaker phone era, I sat on the other side of the desk, and I got to listen to one half of the conversation. Well, my dad grabs his phone book. He flips, his finger down the rent-a-car page. He goes, here we go, ABC Rent-A-Car. Let's call these people. I've never called them before. He dials the telephone. He gets the purchasing agent on the phone. And Ray, I am not kidding you, in 3 minutes, he gets an order for 20 cars. And I have to tell you that was the moment. Yeah, and that was the moment. I mean, I knew I couldn't do it. So that was it. I decided in that moment to quit the car business. I thought I could never, ever do what I just watched my dad do, because you see, my father was the quintessential sales natural. He was one of these people who could start a conversation with anyone, anywhere, anytime about anything. He didn't have any fear or hesitation. He didn't need any training programs or steps. The truth is, in this regard, I am not my father's son.
Right. Now, this is usually the point where people are assuming that Rich is going to say how he dug in and worked really hard and conquered his fear of selling, which actually is not the case.
No, not so much. When I say I quit my job, I'm not trying to be funny. I did. I quit my job. I couldn't see any other way out from underneath my dad's sales legend shadow. I moved from Chicago all the way to Los Angeles to get as far away from selling as I possibly could. And interestingly, the very first job I took when I got to LA was in sales. Right? But this time I took a job in retail sales, you see, because I was smarter than the average bear. I knew that the problem was that I had to go out and cold call on people, and I had to start conversations with strangers. Well, in retail, that wouldn't be the problem, right? In retail, people would be coming into me. They would walk into my store, onto my sales floor, and I would just show the merchandise, and I would be a great success. Well, the truth is it didn't make any difference. I still found myself failing at sales. Now, for those of you who have read the book, Go for No, this story might sound just a little bit familiar to you, and that's because this story in the book is my story. The character in the book is, for all intents and purposes, me. It is what I experienced. So here I am in this new job selling suits for a living, and to say that I wasn't doing well is an understatement. My sales were so abysmal, I was pretty sure they were going to fire me. And that's when I heard that the district manager, a man by the name of Harold, was scheduled to visit the store, and I thought, maybe if I could impress this guy Harold on this store visit, they'd give me a chance to improve my sales, right? Well, Harold shows up at 9:30 in the morning. We all had donuts and coffee. Store opened up at 10 o'clock. I was the first person in that morning, so I got to help the first customer, and in walks this well-dressed gentleman who immediately announces that he wants to buy an entire wardrobe of clothing. And I thought, man, this is it. Here it is. This is my chance to impress Harold. I'm going to show this guy just what a great salesperson I am. And for the next half hour, I took care of this man. It ended up in an $1,100 sale, which was a big sale for the time period. And, man, I was proud of myself. And I was just certain that Harold was going to fall all over himself, telling me how wonderful I was. Well, for the first few minutes, he didn't say a word. And finally, he threw me a bone. He said, hey, that was a nice sale, kid. And then he asked me the question. And when I say the question, I mean it was a question that literally would change the course of my life. And so, and here I am on the phone many years later having Ray say that the book we wrote changed the course of his life. So Harold changed a lot of lives, probably not just with me, but with other people that he asked this question of. And the question, he said, was, out of curiosity, what did that customer say no to? And I was a little bit thrown by the question because I didn't understand where it was coming from. But when I stopped and I mentally reviewed the sale in my mind from beginning to end, I realized that that particular customer had not said no. Okay, he hadn't said no to anything. Every single thing I laid in front of that man, he said yes to. I said, well, actually, Harold, the customer didn't say no to anything. And then Harold asked me the other really important question. He said, then how did you know he was done? Well, I'm going to tell you how I knew he was done. See, I was a young kid. I wasn't making a lot of money. I had never spent, $1,000 on a shopping trip for clothing, on myself in my life. To walk into a clothing store and spend, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, that was like outside of my consciousness. So when you as a customer got to my mental spending limit, which was $1,000, you were done. I mean, I would ring the sale up, send you on your way. Harold said, he goes, Richard, he said, I watched you sell. And he said, you know what, kid? He said, you're not half bad. He said, but your fear of the word no is going to kill you. And then he added the final little magical words. He said, but you know what? He said, I think if you could just get over that, he said, I think that you could become one of the great ones. Well, it was amazing because I went into work that morning thinking they were, going to fire me. And I went home that night, 2 letters from greatness. And the letters were N-O, no. Well, while this is my story, I'm pretty sure that I'm not alone here. It is very likely that my story is, at least to some degree, your story too, for those of you who are on this call. Or if not, it's certainly the story of some of the people who are on your team or will be on your team in the future.
Well, yeah, and I have to say, actually, it was my story because when Richard and I met, and I actually thought I was a pretty darn good salesperson, and when he shared the Go for No story with me, I realized in that moment, oh my gosh, you know what? I don't like hearing no, and I don't go for no. I shy away from no's. No's seem to me to be pushy, and I like to call myself a pathological people pleaser. So when anybody thinks I'm pushy, then I'm not being my people-pleasing self, right? So I totally needed the message. That's why I absolutely, completely fell in love with it and love sharing it, because I think most people, and I certainly did, they spend their careers seeking success, wanting the yeses while doing everything within their power to avoid failure, to avoid hearing no's, and that's a recipe that ensures mediocre performance. I mean, the reality is that intentionally increasing your failure rate, and by that we mean intentionally increasing the number of times people say no to you, that's the ultimate strategy for achieving long-lasting and sustainable performance. Because when you go out of your way to increase the number of no's you hear, the yeses will show up at your door in greater quantity than you ever could have imagined before.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to tell you, before that day with Harold, you see, I had operated using a mental model that had me in the middle. And I think this is the model everybody operates from, at least naturally, with success, having people say yes to me on one side, and failure, having people say no, having people reject me on the other side. And you see, I thought it was my mission in sales and in business, and quite frankly in my life, I thought it was my mission to do everything within my power to move towards success and to have people say yes to me while simultaneously doing everything within my power to avoid failure and rejection and having people say no to me. But you see, what Harold got me to understand that day was that there was a second model, a new model, quite frankly, a more effective model. Harold said, Richard, the way that you should be thinking is that you're on one end. Failure, rejection, having people say no to you is in the middle. He goes, and this success that you want so desperately in your life, he says, that's on the far end of the model. He said, failure and rejection and hearing the word no are not things that you're supposed to be avoiding. He says, these are things you're supposed to be seeking. There's a new idea. He said, these are the stepping stones, if you will, on the road to success. Put another way, what Harold taught me in that moment is what turned out to be the subtitle of our book, which is that yes is the destination, right? And no is how you get there. Yes is the destination, no is how you get there. Harold said, most people, when they get to the sign marked failure, they just figure they're heading in the wrong direction. Well, what do any of us do when we think we're heading in the wrong direction? We turn around and we go back the other way. Well, geez, if the sign says failure 2 miles ahead, we must be, going in the wrong direction. Well, Harold said it's not. He said when you see the sign marked failure, when people start telling you no, when you're experiencing massive rejection, he said you are not going in the wrong direction. You're going in the right direction because success is always straight ahead.
Yeah. So we like to say that the number that really matters in business and in your life, you guys, is your NQ, your no quotient. It's the number of times you are willing to hear no before succeeding. It's the number of times you are willing to get knocked down and then get back up, knowing full well that you are probably, almost certainly going to get knocked back down again. And that is really the number that determines greatness in today's world, because the history of the world's greatest people and the movers and shakers and doers and everybody that you see who wins the sales awards and recruiting awards and the people who are walking across the stages and getting cars and trips and all that, these are not people who shy away from no. These are people with incredibly high no quotient. So the idea here is to start living in what Richard and I like to call a go for no world, where you see no differently. And here's what I like. It can make things a lot more fun and empowering. And I love that because we're not trying to pretend that no doesn't exist. It does exist. So let's make it for our benefit. Let's turn this thing around and turn it into an asset rather than an obstacle. So here's what we're going to do. We've got some time to talk about our core concepts. And what this is from is, after we wrote Go for No, we had it for a few years, and I badgered Rich for years, actually, to create really something in-depth that we could provide people. So he spent about 3 years creating our Mastering Go for No training program. We call it Mastering Go for No. There's 20 core concepts. They are strategic. Some of them are mindset oriented. It's all designed to help people master and apply Go for No to whatever business you're in. And so it's us, 3 CDs on audio. So that's what we're going to take you through, is a couple of these core concepts, our favorites that we think that can make the biggest impact. So let's start with the first one.
Yeah, let's see. The first, I guess the first idea, first concept we want to share with you tonight is core concept number 9 from the CD program. We're going to kind of bop around here. Having yes goals is important. Having no goals is critical. This is what Ray was kind of talking about.
Yes,
no goals.
Exactly. So all of you listening to this, I'm sure, are fantastic goal setters. You've been taught and trained to set yes goals. That's what we all operate with, and that's like a goal for the number of times people say yes to us, right? How many sales we generate, what the dollar amounts are, a goal for a number of people we add to a team if we're in a business where we're trying to recruit people on our team, and that's what we've been taught to do. And the flaw is that once we achieve our yes goal, or sometimes even as we get near to achieving our yes goal, we tend to divert our attention to other tasks, right? We reward ourselves for our success, but how do we reward ourselves? Well, we usually slow down. We take time off. We, get involved in non-sales oriented tasks. We maybe playing golf or going to a movie or shopping, and we're not saying you can't reward yourself, but what we tend to do is we just slow down, right? Even if we're on a hot streak. So there's a better approach that can dramatically increase your performance. Ray talked about it a little bit, and that approach is to stop setting yes goals and to start setting no goals instead.
Right. In other words, stop setting goals for the number of sales that you intend to make or the number of people you intend to recruit and add to your team.
All the yeses.
Yeah, all the yeses. And start setting goals instead for the specific number of times and the specific number of people that you are going to get to say no to you. What we are talking about here is to actually start operating with a failure quota rather than a success quota.
Right. So, you guys are all probably really good goal setters and goal achievers, and sometimes it can feel a little weird to do this, but we did it in our business. This is like 15 years ago. We launched our business doing speaking and training. Our goal was to speak 4 times a month. So we would, we had a yes goal of 4, right? So we'd get on the phone, we'd start calling, we'd email, we'd send packages, and sometimes we got lucky and booked the 4 programs we wanted. We got our 4 yeses at the beginning, of the month. And so what did we do with the rest of the month? Well, Richard and I took time off. We lived in LA, we laid by the pool, we went to the movies, and then we had an epiphany and we said, gosh, we're starting to teach people Go for No, and we're not really living Go for No as much as we should. So we decided to change the way we set goals, and we started setting no goals. And for us, we decided to have 100 companies say no to us each month. And we knew that if we did that, which actually was kind of insane because it was really hard to get to that crazy goal even back then, when someone said yes to us, we didn't stop to celebrate. We just knew we had to keep going to hit this no goal, keep contacting, keep contacting. And what was amazing is that we found in any month in which we actually hit this no goal, we had more business than we knew what to do with. We were getting our yeses and we were just collecting more no's. And whenever, things would go back and we'd have a lean period and we weren't, where we wanted to be financially, we could look back and see, on the calendar where we just kind of fell out of, setting our no goal. We would just kind of slip back into the yes goal mindset.
Right, and that's the insidious thing about only having what we call yes goals, right? Sometimes these yes goals end up limiting your performance rather than driving it upward. But you see, if you will stay focused on the behaviors necessary to be successful in your business, in this case, it would be to hit your no goal, you will find that the yeses will come. They'll come automatically. They always do.
Right, absolutely.
Right.
Okay, so this brings us to...
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just throw one thing in there?
Yeah, go for it.
One thing that I noticed other people did were, they would say, hey, I've been, prospecting for X number of days, weeks, months, whatever, and I don't have any yeses. And, by applying this, I always found, when I went through the, just 6 months, pure craziness, 20 no's a day, and after that period, I never again, I think it trained me, I never again looked at, oh man, I don't have any signups. I just looked at, okay, what habits created those lack of signups? I didn't get enough no's. And so it is switched, and I think a lot of people, they tend to look at their results versus the habits that created the results. And your guys' training really helped me with that, at least.
Great. Well, that's, and that's exactly what we're after, is to try to change the mindset where people understand that the activity, people think that goals should always be the results, that it has to be the end number. Well, goals can actually be behaviors. In the same way that you can, for somebody who's trying to get in shape, the goal can be, to do 50 push-ups or to do 100 sit-ups. It doesn't have to be what the weight is going to be. It doesn't have to be how much muscle mass you have. It can be the activity that leads to it. And so that really is our goal here, is to shift people's thinking from the end result to the behaviors that achieve them.
Yeah, I love that. And that kind of dovetails really nicely into what we're going to talk about next, which is also it kind of really dovetails into this whole thought process about these no goals. And then once you create that no goal and set that no goal, what we want to say here is this is from our training program. This is number 4, and that is to focus on quantity first and quality second. And specifically what we're talking about here is the quantity and the quality of your sales and business, the business opportunity presentation.
Right. So quantity, of course, refers to the number of people that you are going to approach with your organization's story.
Right. While quality refers to how well you explain the features and benefits of the products and the business opportunity and all that.
Right. Now, we do not want to discount the importance of doing a quality presentation when it comes to trying to influence people, right, in the world of sales or building your business and achieving success. But the reality is that the number of presentations that you make,
the number of we like to say the number of doors you knock on.
Yeah, exactly. The number of people who you are attempting to recruit.
In other words, the number of shots you take is significantly more important than how well or how perfect that you do it. And we have a reason for bringing this up.
Yeah, exactly. I mentioned my rough start in sales. Well, when I started in the car business, I noticed that my father had a piece of masking tape stuck to the back of his, telephone receiver. And on it he had written, 3 words. And the 3 words were unseen, untold, unsold. Well, being new to the world of sales, I asked my dad what that meant. And my father said, Richard, he said, selling is nothing more than telling your story to as many people as you can, as fast as you can. He said, if people remain unseen and untold, they will forever remain unsold. Well, I mean, let's face it, it just doesn't get any simpler than that. See, what my father did not say was that the key to success was to be perfect in the way you told the story. It was just to tell as many people as fast as you could. And that's really our point here, is that the best, most perfect approach in the world, the one that the one that you practice for hours or days or weeks, or for some of you months, is completely wasted if you don't deliver it. While the worst stuttering, stammering, unfilled, screwed up presentation you could imagine has a chance to create magic and change your life. It does not matter how smooth you are in this business or whether you can answer every question that somebody throws at you or every objection. What matters is that you tell your story to as many people as you can, as fast as you can. In fact, Andrea and I are willing to go out on a limb here for a second time in this call and say that you could approach people and you could say, you don't really want to know about the XYZ company, do you? And you know what? Some people are going to go, I don't know, what's XYZ? What do you do? What's your product? How does it work? How will it change my life? And suddenly you're going to find yourself in a conversation. And that was the goal in the first place.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we don't recommend this. We always say we don't recommend this approach. But it's a great example to make the point that the worst presentation that is delivered is infinitely better than the perfect presentation that's never delivered. Now, the problem is that, as Rich said, many people spend so much time preparing and working and being nervous about their approach. They never get around to approaching anyone. Somehow they're just never ready, right? Never ready, never perfect. Well, the best way to perfect the quality of your approach is to increase the quantity of people you approach. And I'll just throw this in too. One of the things that we've done over the years is we've done this Go for No, 30-day Go for No challenge. And, we challenge people to see how many no's they can get in a 30-day period. And one of the cool things that I've noticed over the years is people's feedback. And they say, it wasn't until I forced myself to get those no's and forced myself out there that I really saw where my gaps were in my skills. And, I think we all have this tendency to just keep adding skills and working on skills. Well, if you're not out there and you're not testing yourself and trying and letting yourself fail and allowing yourself to mess up, you're never going to have a chance to figure out what those things are. So obviously we're not saying, oh, Rich and Andrea, they're saying, I just go out there and I'm bad forever. No, you're not going to be bad forever. You can't be. You will improve just by the nature of getting out there. And I think that's the great thing. It's kind of a self-solving thing.
Right, exactly.
All right. So let's move on. Richard, we have things that we need to cover. Keep going.
Do we? Well, we have to tell you that kind of, in this way, this whole quantity, being the first and foremost part of your focus, this lets, the SW principle go to work for you. Some of you have heard this, right? Some will, some won't, so what? And we have to credit Jack Canfield, actually, for the person who introduced us to the fourth one, someone's waiting.
Right.
Right? Some will, some won't, so what? Someone's waiting.
Yeah, some will. You're going to make your presentation. It's going to be easy. Some won't, no matter what you do, no matter what your product's pricing is, the startup fee, or anything else, you're just not going to do it. And then so what? And this is where your response to the no comes in, your attachment to the outcome. In this case, your attachment to the yes needs to become so what. And I know that sounds cliche to just say, oh, just say so what. That sounds so easy, right? And for most people, at this point, it seems impossible to not have no affect them in some negative way. And the question is why? Well, it's because you've spent so long on the yes-no emotional roller coaster that you are used to the ups and downs. You're used to that pressure and that stress, but it's exhausting and it's draining. It doesn't serve you, it's not helpful, and it's not inspiring to beat yourself up over a no, right? Because then it's like you beat yourself up and, oh, that sounds fun, let's do that again. Well, that's why, in addition to engaging in what we talked about tonight, like the intellectual strategy, of setting no goals, you must be simultaneously, you must be constantly working on your mindset around this no. You've got to reprogram how you feel about it. You've got to get yourself off that emotional roller coaster and make the full transition to living in a go for no world and not the go for yes world that we've all been, taught and trained to live in. So, and then I just want to say, mention about this idea of someone's waiting, because that's really interesting too. For most of us, because living in this go for yes world. It's like, okay, we got to know, no means never. Instead, you really want to think of it as no means not yet. So you have a list of people you've probably talked to. You've got, you know, referrals that you may have. You've got happy customers. You've got someone's card, somebody that you've met. These are all the someone's waiting. There's always someone waiting. But the problem is most of the time we live in this go for yes world, meaning we're always operating in a way that has us avoiding situations where we could be rejected, avoiding, right, that potential no. So we get complacent. Maybe we get lazy. We wait for the easy phone call. We wait for the customer that happens to fall into our lap rather than getting out there and making something happen in our business. When you take the someone's waiting seriously, you have far less emotional reaction because you know you have opportunities around the corner, and you've got to keep going quickly because, you know, you see you've got a need for speed, you've got that someone's waiting, so it helps with the emotional reaction, and it also helps you keep on track for getting your no goals.
Right. And this is what brings us really to our next important go for no concept, which is that no doesn't mean never, no means not yet.
Yep.
Now, I know that there are numbers people out there. I'm a numbers person, so if you love numbers, here are the numbers I think you'll find really interesting. The selling statistics that we found most impressive when we did our research were that 44% of all people give up after they get one no from somebody. They present their product and service, the person tells them no, they never go back to that person again because they believe that no meant never. 22% more give up after hearing a second no, 14% more after the third no, 12% more after the fourth no. Well, if you're doing the math, it means that 92% of all people will give up before getting a fifth no from somebody. And yet the research project that this came from showed that 60% of all customers will say no 4 times before they finally say yes to you. So when we ask the question, you know, we all ask the question, how do I get in the top, 8 or 10% of all performers? The answer is simple. Stay in the game. Be in the game long enough so that when everybody else has gone home, there's only 8 people standing there waiting for 60% of the customers who will finally say yes. That's how you end up winning the trips. That's how you end up with the great life. You end up with it by staying in the game. And this really kind of brings us to, I guess we're getting close to the end here, aren't we, Andrea?
Which we are going to have, I know, Ray, we talked about this. We're going to have some time for Q&A, which is always so much fun. So we have time for this, but we did want to cover something that we call the 5 failure levels. This is in the book. We just wanted to highlight these because it's the perfect way to have kind of a go for no overview, and you can see how you can move through these yourself. So, Rich,
yeah, level 1, the ability to fail. 100% of the people on planet Earth have the ability to fail. It's fundamentally where everybody starts. Level 2, the willingness to fail. The willingness to fail means that, hey, I understand that failure is important, and I'll do it if I have to. But, people who get to level 2, they're doing it, but they're doing it begrudgingly. They certainly aren't enjoying it very much. It's level 3 where it gets exciting. Level 3 is what Andrea and I created the term, the wantingness to fail. Now, I'll be honest with you. It was a challenge for me. When I first started, I didn't want to fail. I had to be shown that it was a better way. And in reality, probably fewer than 5% of people ever get to level 3 for any sustained period of time. The wantingness means that at the end of the day, when Ray says he wanted to get his 20 no's, if he had gotten 18 no's and he's laying in bed, he would be disappointed that he had not gotten the final 2 no's because he wanted to hear the word no. It's a very different mindset from just the willingness. And that really takes us to level 4, which is failing bigger and failing faster.
That's right. And so when you get to level 4, and you've come to the conclusion that if failing is good and getting no's is good, then failing and getting bigger no's is even better. So what we like to say is a no is a no is a no, no matter who it's coming from.
Right. There's a saying, easy yeses produce little successes.
I love that.
Right?
That is a go for yes mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's a go for no mindset.
Yeah.
So when thinking about going for a big no, we do want to ask this question, and that is, do you have something the person might benefit from? And if you believe that you do and you're sold on the benefits, then put your own fear or apprehension aside, and just tell them your story. Just share with them, ask them some questions. There are probably some people that you haven't approached, right, with that go for yes mindset, where you've had an excuse or whatever. Just remember, a no is a no is a no, no matter who it's coming from. So when you're trying to get all these no's and you're setting no goals, all of the prejudging, all of the excuses, all of the stuff that we tell ourselves in the go for yes world has to go out the window. And that's what's so fun about it, is you can have fun with it, and that's kind of the go for no mindset. That's living in a go for no world.
Right, and when you get to level 5, finally, is what we call failing exponentially, which means failing through others or with others, if you want. This is usually a function of team leadership within an organization, or a function of group leadership, which is what Ray is doing right now with everybody, on this call. And that is, to understand that if individual failure can lead to individual success, then group failure can lead to group success. Can you get everybody failing together?